9/11, 2001, you were in the, I guess, the command center. Tell us about 9/11, Larry, how that day began and unfolded.
I went to American, as I said, as the head of global security. Had an outstanding team of professionals, former FBI, DEA, state and local police, and whatever. That was my headquarters unit. And then we had close to 3,000 security agents around the world. But it was an absolutely fantastic experience. But going back to 9/11, we started each day with a global conference call, an operations call, and I reported to the vice chairman at the time. And as I was walking into his office, as I walked by his assistant, she said, "Hold up a minute, this call's for you." And she said, "It's the center manager." I got on the phone, he said, "We've got a missing airplane." What? What do you mean you've got a missing airplane? We can't raise it. So there are plans for everything in that business, every contingency. And that kind of goes back to my Marine Corps experience. Every circumstance, what have you, you've got a plan for it. And he told me Flight 11 was missing and they couldn't raise it at all. And we had to presume that it had been hijacked. I got on the phone, well, I had his assistant, the vice chairman's assistant, call down to my office, get my command staff, get them over to the command center to ramp up for that emergency. I then got on the phone with the head of the FBI Dallas office, and Danny Deffenbaugh, great professional, good friend. I called him and I said, "We've got a missing airplane, Flight 11. Don't know what's happening with it, but we've got to presume that it's been hijacked."
What time was this, by the way, Larry? What time was it when
7:45 a.m.
So how many minutes after? Apparently, did the transponder on Flight 11 get turned off? You thought it was hijacked because there was no transponder signal?
Yeah, they could not raise the plane. They didn't know where it was or anything like that.
Right. Okay. So then, and that was how many minutes were you contacted after it went dark on you?
How many minutes after that?
Yeah, after they. Yeah, I mean, from that point where they could no longer track that plane, it was completely off radar, off tracking. How long did it take for you to get contacted?
It was just a matter of a few minutes. I coincidentally was walking into my boss, who was the head of the operation at the time. I was walking into his office, so it was just a matter of just a few minutes. At that time, I then called, after notifying my staff to get over to the command center, call the FBI, and they obviously were planning to, and well, he told me he was sending a group of agents out to my office, responding and what have you. So we're having that conversation. And Bill, in the next room, I heard voices and I heard a shriek. And I looked in there, and it was a conference room. The TV was on, and there was a reporter standing there, and he was standing as he reported that he was in front of the North Tower, World Trade Center. And he said, "We've had a report that a small plane crashed into the North Tower here." The camera panned up, and it showed smoke up at the top. Now, the head of the FBI and I are both on the phone. I asked him, "Are you watching this?" "Yes, I am." And the reporter kept saying a small plane, and I commented that, well, it must be something out of Teterboro or what have you. That's a terrible situation and what have you. But let's get back to my hijacking. Right at that time, we watched United 175 fly into the South Tower.
Oh, you were watching it on TV, huh? Wow.
Watching it on TV. That changed all of our lives. That changed the world that day, and I will never, ever, ever forget it.
So when that was going on, I mean, I guess with the calls coming in, Nydia Gonzalez, I believe, was the person in North Carolina. I think it like kind of like a reservation center.
Yes,
And Betty Ong Betty Ong had called her apparently from
that's right.
the.
Right.
So was that all been getting patched into Dallas at that time?
Yes, what happened is right after the FBI started rolling and whatever, I mean, it was frenzy. Things are moving, snap, 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 step by step. A lot of activity taking place right then. The center manager then put me on the phone. I talked to Nydia Gonzalez, and we listened to the Betty Ong conversation where she was reporting what was happening on the airplane. From that point on, it was absolutely maddening. I cannot adequately describe what took place from that point on. It was just an absolute blur because, well, the other thing is we had other planes out there. It was clear that this was an act of war, terrorism, or what have you.
Yeah.
We had, obviously, it was clear that our Flight 11 was that first one that went into the North Tower. United 175 went into the South Tower. At that time, we have to wonder, and we were wondering, okay, what's happening next? We've got to get our planes on the ground. We ordered our airplanes on the ground at least 10 minutes before the FAA put out that order to everyone.
Really?
Yes, we did. After that, there was Flight 77 that flew into the Pentagon. And then the final one that day was United 93 that went into Shanksville. So my counterpart at United and I were great friends before that. We are lifelong brothers now, and we're members of what we call a very exclusive club that we do not ever want to have anyone else join.
Sure, of course. So let me ask you a question, Larry. When that started to happen, it was basically about 15 minutes of back and forth with Betty Ong. There was another person, I think, also on that flight, a stewardess that
Yes,
was
there was.
also communicating.
Right.
McSweeney, I believe her name was.
Yes.
And so, what was her role in that? Betty was relaying what was going on. First of all, what did Betty disclose about this, about that flight and what was going on when she first called in?
Well, Betty was at the rear of the aircraft, and she was reporting that there's something going on up at the front. One of the passengers she believed had been killed, and whatever. There was a lot of confusion, but it was clear that she thought that the plane was obviously being hijacked and what have you. So there was a lot of confusion that was going on. You can imagine just what was taking place, and so consequently, it was just a flurry, a frenzied situation. And I was listening to her voice, and I'm thinking that she's watching all of this, and she knows what's coming because they were describing seeing buildings. The plane had banked, describing seeing buildings at eye level. It was just a horrible, horrible.
And by the way, Larry, you were listening to all that as it was unfolding, correct?
Yes. Yes.
Wow. So she first saw. I guess they made a turn. Correct me if I'm wrong. That was a flight that left Logan.
Yes.
And so when it came to, I don't know at what point it was hijacked, but at one point it made a hard turn south along the Hudson River, pretty much. And was that the point where it got hijacked when it made that turn, or was it
no?
somewhere
It was
Massachusetts?
No, it was shortly after takeoff.
Right. So then, tell us about. There's another person on the flight, Daniel Lewin, who apparently was in first class. I think they know that for a fact. Betty reported what seats the hijacker were in. Is that correct?
Yes, I believe he was in 9B. She had mentioned that that person she thought had been killed much later. I came to know that was the name of the person. That's what everyone speculated, that it was him, but I don't know that for.
But people oftentimes will say, well, you know, they were allowing things that shouldn't have been allowed. At that time, the FAA, or I don't know what authority was responsible, were allowing people to have small knives and what have you on flights. Is that pretty much accurate, Larry? How
Yes,
did they?
you had a 4-inch limitation, but let me say this to clear it up for everyone. Our I'm talking about the U.S. National Aviation Security Program was built around previous hijackings where if someone hijacked an airplane, they wanted money, they wanted to go somewhere, or they wanted compadres released from jail or prison or whatever. That
Right.
was the incentive. And it was all based upon, all the training was based upon cooperating with people. There had not been any situations where um, people were doing it from a terroristic standpoint. They wanted something, okay? So the whole basis of it was cooperation. Give them what they want, keep everybody safe, and be done with it. After they go where they're going to go or what have you, then we get the plane back. There had been, just countless flights, hijackings into Cuba and whatever. Always got the
Yeah.
plane back and so forth. So the whole concept was built around cooperation. Just give them what they want and let's
Sure.
get everybody back safe. So consequently, that was the mindset throughout the aviation world in the U.S. The thought of terrorism, someone seizing an airplane for a terroristic act or whatever, that was an over there situation.
Sure.
That took place in foreign countries, not in the U.S., not in our backyard. So the situation where you had the concept, you had a program that was built around cooperation, played right into the hands of the terrorists.
Of course. Larry, was there any intel at all? I mean, remember, this happened in 2001. In 1996, if I'm not mistaken, we had the Nairobi and the African embassy attacks. I think there were two at the same time, Tanganyika and Nairobi. But was anybody thinking about the possibility of any terrorist attack on airplanes at all in 2001? Prior to that, did people think that Al Qaeda would not be using that type of attack, or was there any connection at all that they might do something?
From my perspective and everything that I was aware of, taught, and what have you, and the status within our country was that it was an over there problem. It was not domestic U.S. The program was not built around a domestic terrorist aviation incident in the U.S.
Right, and so when after this happened, was there any type of review of how things unfolded? At any point, was there something whereby we could have acted in a different manner to interdict these people, or no? Was there anything, any second guessing of what happened?
There's always second guessing, without question. There was a lot that could have been done. One of the things that was pointed out through the 9/11 Commission investigation and what have you was that there was absolutely no sharing of intelligence information within our governmental bodies. None whatsoever.
It was hermetically sealed, so the FBI wasn't talking to NSA. The Defense Intelligence Agency weren't talking to people in the FBI or in the civilian sector. Do you think that's changed as a result of 9/11? Did they have much better sharing at the top?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the 9/11 Commission identified that as being one of the main problems. Quite frankly, I won't name the agencies, but Flight 77 may not have happened had there been a better spirit of cooperation and information sharing with respect to that particular flight. But information sharing, it just did not happen to the degree that it needed to prior to 9/11. But that was
Right.
one of the key issues that was determined by the 9/11 Commission. And as a result, a lot was changed.
Right. And so then, you have within months, you had the Richard Reed shoe bomber incident, and that had to do with, it was a different type of a problem that you were dealing with, right? Tell us about the Richard Reed incident, if it's possible, please, Larry.
It's a very interesting thing in that for some reason, I don't know why, but I find myself in situations that somehow are emblazoned in historical moments. And sometimes I like to look at myself and say maybe they're hysterical moments, but the hysterical ones were very, very few and far between.
Historical.
The others were horrific tragedies. Richard Reed was one where previously that year, I had gone to Paris and met with the aviation officials there because at American, we wanted to install trace detection machines at our gates. And in order to do that, we had to have the permission of obviously the airport authority. Met with them, and basically the pitch was, we will buy the equipment, we will run the equipment, we will staff it. It does not cost you a cent. All I need is a yes, and we'll do that. That will add an extra layer of security and protection. So before someone actually stepped aboard one of our airplanes, they would have that extra layer, the trace detection, explosives machines, and that again, we're paying for it all. No one.
Sure.
All you have to do is say yes. My plan was to go to Paris, and then to Madrid or Milan after that. Madrid, I'm sorry, after that. Anyway, the French authorities said absolutely not. No, you're questioning our security. And I said, no, it's an extra layer of security. That's all. It's not costing you anything. And so consequently, they declined. We just were not allowed to do that. Madrid was the same thing. And the irony of it is Richard Reed showed up to board an American Flight 63.
Like 2000, it was 2001, like in December.
It was 2001.
Wasn't it like Christmas?
Yeah, we're only talking about a couple of months later.
It was Christmas.
I think it was, well, I don't want to speculate, but the dates just sort of all run together.
No, that's okay.
But he showed up. It was within a couple of months after 9/11. But he showed up, and the security agents, and our program at American was built around the Israeli concept. All of our international security was the same thing, taught by the Israelis and everything. They were partners for us and with us. And the security agent was on his job. Richard Reed checked in with him. He started asking him questions, profiling him, what have you, and thought, this guy is bad news. No, he rejected him. They called the police. The police came, took him away, and the guy did a good job.
Absolutely, sure.
The police brought him back a few hours later and said, no, he's good to go. He's all right. We've checked him out. He's fine. Well, the American flight that day had already launched, and at American, the company had to put the guy up in a hotel that night. The next day, he came back for the same flight, and again, our agent rejected him, and rightfully so. The police took umbrage about the fact that we kicked him back again, and they said, no, he is clear. You have to take this passenger, because they took it as an insult that we were questioning the fact that they had released him again.
The clearance.
It had been raining in Paris, and Richard Reed was aboard the flight, and thank God there was a very, very sharp young flight attendant that watched this guy sitting over there and trying to strike matches to his shoe. She proceeded to pounce on him with the help of other passengers, the co-pilot and everything else. And Richard Reed had been sitting there trying to light a fuse on his bomb shoe, his shoe that had been packed with explosives. And the only reason it did not ignite was the fact that it had been raining so much in Paris and the shoes were.
And that they had rejected him, that they had rejected him that day, the prior day, and he had to wait and walk around in the rainy streets of Paris.
Right. But the security agents, the Israeli program was great. Our people did it well, very, very well. And all things considered, they did their jobs well. He should have been rejected. He should have been taken into custody by the police or whatever. Had they done, in my opinion, had they done their due diligence and really done some investigation with this guy, some interviewing, effective interviewing and everything else, that would have never happened because he would have been arrested and the bombs discovered.
Well, no, but you know something, the action of the American Airlines security staff really prevented that from happening, because he would have been on the flight and maybe would have been successful.
Yes.
And it would have been a really big, because I don't know how many were on that. That was a Christmas flight, I believe. It flying into Detroit, Larry, if I remember correctly. And I wouldn't be surprised if it had, you know, maybe it was a full complement of crew and passengers, but it probably would have gone off. Would have been he had enough explosives, right?
Oh, absolutely. I had the privilege at the FBI lab to examine both the shoes, and they were very well crafted. The explosives had, I mean, it was done by a master technician, according to the scientists there at the FBI lab. No question about it. That plane would have disappeared, and it would have been at the bottom of the North Atlantic someplace.
I mean, it was like maybe was it like plastic explosives, maybe a couple of kilos? You think?
I can't recall what the weight was, but the insole of the shoe, the sole of the shoe was in a waffle pattern, and in every indentation there was explosives. Obviously,
so it was massive
back then and what have you, but there were subsequent tests done with a like amount of explosives and on other aircraft, and it would have taken out the side of that airplane because he was in a window seat. It would have taken out the side of the airplane, and it would have been in the North Atlantic.
It would have catastrophic, yeah, fantastic. Thank God for that it was. I think after that, the French said, yes, it's not a bad idea, right? To use.
Oh, yes, anything you want to do. Right. Hindsight's a wonderful thing, isn't it?
Yeah, it sure is, man. So anyway, well, listen, Larry, I would love to be able to interview you again on Quorum Radio to talk about your time in the FBI. Larry Wansley's book is FBI Undercover, The True Story of Special Agent Mandrake. Larry Wansley, thanks so much. We'd love to have you on again at Quorum Radio, and Godspeed to you at this time. All right, look forward to seeing you again.
Thank you, and God bless your listeners. Stay safe out there. Take care.